Oh yes, it's that time of the week again where we we make another episode of Crimson Tower, that series that you all know and love so much. Not a lot to say really. I guess we can just go straight into what we're actually doing in this episode. So do you remember when I said last time how we finished the main street last episode? I lied, actually. We're finishing off today, just very briefly. I thought it'd be nice to have sort of a backstage area. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Disney parks from a bird's eye view, where they have a main street, but then behind the main street buildings, they kind of have like an area for trucks and containers to pull up to, deliver things to the shops, right? You guys know what I mean? I thought it'd be nice to kind of include something like that in our park as well. Not quite the same perfectionist level of sort of hiding it like Disney do, because you can still see it from the tops of rides and the monorail goes straight over it. So Disney do execute it a little bit better, but for artistic sake, I think it's kind of nice to just include it. So that's what we're doing today. So I didn't want to, not much of this video is going to be dedicated to it because it is just essentially me placing a big path with some concrete slabs around it. I couldn't really find a good way to make it look like it sort of disappeared off stage, like off, the world, because you can't build roads going off the edge of the map. I mean, I guess you can do it a little bit better now they've added the scenario editor, but at the time of making this video, at the time of making this footage, I should say, months and months ago. Well, no, it probably wasn't months ago, to be honest, probably about a month ago. Exactly. There was no way of doing it. And like I said, there still isn't really a way of sort of making roads disappear off, but it's a lot easier now. You can do the scenario editors and kind of add things off the edge of the map. I think you can do that. I guess you could have made like a tunnel. I'm getting a bit off topic here, but yes, that's what we're doing here. So we're making a backstage area. So I actually had those white doors there. They're like coaster doors, but I sort of froze them, as in I didn't make them triggered, so they can just be closed. And in the end, I decided I didn't really like the way they looked. So I'm not going to show you me placing the entirety of the replacement wall, because you've already seen me kind of... Well, I mean, you can just watch me place a few different components and imagine what that would look like duplicated across the entire perimeter. But we just went out with a sort of simplistic brick wall. So I just added sort of the standard 1 meter piece and added a little topper to it. Added a row of 3 just so it wasn't too painful placing it piece by piece. And then just sort of duplicated the building around the edge of the backstage area. And we've added a few things there. We've got the DLC cars there. Like cars, I find it odd that there's no cars in this game. Like people have to make car parks using sort of the geometric shapes, rather than just being able to place things like you could in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. There's a lot of things in this game that were in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, and for the life of me, I can't understand why they're not in this one. Like, I kind of get water parks. I mean, for one thing, water parks were a DLC, or an expansion pack in RCT3, so I guess it wasn't in the base game. But things like elevators and cars, like, and certain scenery objects and certain ride types, I'm just like, why would you not include that in this game? But I don't know, I mean, by and large, obviously in every sense, this game is technically superior to RCT3, unless we're talking about water parks, because there is just literally no way of building a water park in this game, unless you kind of do it purely for aesthetics. Like, I know the Koali Beach collaborative save thing that a few YouTubers did, that had like a water park section in it, but it was just purely aesthetic. Like I say, it had no functionality to it. But yeah, you kind of saw me... You saw me build one side of this car park. Now you can watch me build car park backstage. I was building the one on the other side essentially. It's the same sort of thing as before, so I don't need to show that in particularly detail, in much detail, I should say. But yeah, I kind of mentioned earlier that you saw me build the monorail out in the last episode, and then I said no, I did end up deleting it and decided, we'll just build the park and then shape the monorail around the shape of the park rather than the other way around, which is something I always set out to do. And then always very quickly realize that that's actually a stupid idea. Why would you do that? So I don't really know why I keep doing it. Maybe going forward I won't. But yeah, at this point here, I was just trying to find things that would look like they might be in the back lot of a back, like a backstage area. So I kind of used those train cars and sunk them into the ground to just make them look like regular containers. So yeah, that was all there was to say about that, really. But there we go. The backstage area is complete, other than we can just add some more cars. I mean, it's very obvious they're Knight Rider cars, because those are the only cars we have in the game. But from a distance, which is usually where you're going to be looking at those backstage areas, you find. Now here, this is what the footage looked like. So unfortunately, we lost some footage there, which we can just fast forward to this. So this is a ride I was adding to the western area, the big wooden ride I made a few episodes ago. We're kind of adding a western themed ride to it. And it seems like an odd choice because this is clearly a sci-fi themed ride, but we're going to do like our own skin for it to make it look westerny, because I thought the carriages look a little bit like wagon wheels, right? So I thought it'd be kind of a cool base to reskin. So the thing we need to hide is that big brain in a tank in the middle. So I was trying to find something that would look good in the middle, and I've settled on that big digger piece, and then we just had to find some sort of round structure to cover up the brain in the tube. So I was going to go with that big steam valve thing. What's it called? Boiler. But it didn't quite cover it up. So I played around with a few of the round structures, trying to find something that completely covered it up. Center off the digger as well. And I found that these cogs and the big sort of wheel pieces perfectly encapsulate the center. So that's kind of what we went with in the end. Yep, there we go. Yeah, so those big wheels. And actually it looks quite cool because they revolve in the opposite direction to the ride itself. So it ends up looking quite cool. It looks like it's part of the actual mechanism of the ride. So I think it worked out pretty well in general. And the only thing you didn't see me building, apart from placing the ride itself in the path, I added those wooden posts, quite painstakingly placed them individually. Well, I mean, I made like part of the circle and kind of duplicated it around. So I'm sorry you didn't get to see that, but to be honest, it probably wasn't that interesting to watch me do. But yeah, nothing more to do other than now just to fence off the ride. And like I say, this is going to be like a western area, but it's not like a really, really highly detailed, fantastical western area. It's kind of a basic sort of, not like budget theme park. But like a lot of theme parks don't have the budget of Disney to do their scenery. A lot of them, like Alton Towers and Six Flags, which I use those as examples in pretty much every episode because I haven't been to that many theme parks. But like they have scenery, but it's quite basic scenery. Like it's fairly bland and generic, but it's also vaguely themed. That's what I thought I'd go with here, because I feel like I don't know. I kind of like the more basic scenery because that just reminds me of the parks I've been to, and I don't. Yeah, and I'm very lazy as well. This is something it's something that is always worth remembering. So yeah, basic Western theming. I think for my next part, I like this park. I was still sort of getting used to the basic sort of mechanics and controls of Planet Coaster. So I think as I get more practiced at this game, I'll be able to go a bit heavier into the scenery. I mean, that being said, I feel like the scenery in this park is generally pretty good. I mean, look at that big red tower. And in a couple of episodes' time, we're going to be building a big sci-fi area, and that is very intense on the scenery. So what I just said about having simplistic scenery is actually probably not very accurate to the rest of the park. But when I was building this, at least this particular area, that was kind of the attitude I had. But I'd be lying if I was going to say that complacency wasn't at least part of it. That was a well executed bit of talking, wasn't it? But yeah, so kind of as before, we have this big restaurant area. I thought about just closing it off and just, using your imagination to pretend there's a restaurant there. But I thought, no, we'll add some functionality to it so guests will actually go inside to buy food. So even though the actual interior of this building, I know it's not finished yet, but it doesn't get much more detail than this, just a big open space. But we'll be adding some food stalls inside to actually make it functional, so people will actually go inside to get food, which is kind of something I prioritize. Like, in my point of view, like if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. Like as long as the outside of the building looks nice, I don't really care what the inside looks like to an extent, because I'm never ever going to look inside really, unless I need to go and just tweak some of the settings of one of the shops indoors, and I think I can just suspend my disbelief if I need to do that. So by and large, I only really care about the outside of buildings really, and I think a lot of people feel that way. I mean, unless it's a dark ride, obviously, but that's a completely different topic entirely. So I thought about adding a ride in here or some sort of scenery object, but it just ended up looking a little bit naff. So in the end, I just went with just having it as function as a shop, kind of like a food court. Even though we have got the food court on the main street, not that far away, and we can have like a themed one, I suppose, and just pretend it's sort of more Western food, like buffalo wild wings, or ribs, barbecue ribs, something. I don't know. I don't really know what I'm trying to say with this. But yeah, you can see there what we kind of went with. When I said this is a plain building inside, I meant it's very, very plain inside. Because again, you're not going to go inside. I don't really care. As long as it's functional, guests will actually use it to go and buy food. It could look like anything inside. So yeah, I'm dragging this topic out a bit because I'm like, come on, let's move along. So yeah, I did mention last time actually that in these upcoming episodes, we're going to be building more and more rides. Not technically true. In this episode, we are building a lot of scenery. Next episode, will be focused entirely on a roller coaster. So don't worry, we're going to be building another ride at some point in this series about building rides. And I actually really like the way it came out. I said that the wooden roller coaster that you've kind of been seeing glimpses of in the background of this video, it was one of my favorite rides I've ever built. I'd say a contender for that would be the ride we build in next episode. Well, I won't say what it is, but it's like it uses no set pieces, as in like it doesn't use any of the pre-built parts, mainly because it doesn't have any inversions or anything. But I was quite proud of the way it came out because I managed to make it feel fairly smooth and realistic, despite Planet Coaster not often being very smooth and realistic when you're not using the pre-built parts. So I was quite happy with the way it came out. And like I said, I thought I'd make it its own dedicated episode. I was going to have it as part of this one here, but I kind of wanted this episode to remain focused on just this one area. So that's why it's a slightly shorter episode this time, because it was either going to be a 20-minute episode of the big coaster in next episode and the western area, or just 2 shorter episodes with a bit more focus for each one. So that's kind of why less happens in this episode. But I still think, I feel like it was worth touching on. So in the end, the following episode, like I say, we're going to be building the big coaster, and I'll see how we do for time. I might showcase the suspension bridge I built. I built like a suspension bridge for this park. Spoiler alert. But I built like a suspension bridge for this park, and I was quite happy with that, how that came out. So we might be doing that next episode. I don't know yet. I haven't edited it together, so I'm not really sure what the pacing's going to be like. So we'll just see. That'll be TBC. But even if it isn't, then you can look forward to that, I suppose. And yeah, we're pretty much coming close to the end of this video now. Just placing a few scenery objects around this. I kind of wanted some way of sort of separating the western area from the rest of the park, so I kind of added that ridge there, covered it with trees. Trees are just the best way of having. So it's low effort scenery, but it always looks it looks nice to have trees. So yeah, not much more to say about that really. So I hope you enjoyed this this episode of Planet Coaster. And like I say, next episode we'll be building a ride. I promise. In fact, we didn't even build the ride in this episode, did we? Because part of the part where I built the ride, the footage was lost. So it's been terrible. Well, it's not been terrible, you know what I mean? I haven't built a ride. I've built one ride in this series so far. We're on episode 5. So going forward, we will be building a lot more rides, hopefully. Come to think of it, there's only this area and the sci-fi area that are very scenery intensive, and obviously the main street. Other than that, there's not a lot of big scenery objects in this park. So as the series goes on, it will become more and more ride oriented. But yeah, I still feel like compared to a lot of content creators in Planet Coaster, I feel like I'm fairly light on scenery. Like some people literally just make scenery in the videos. They don't even show the construction of rides. So, you know, if it's whatever floats your boat. If you don't have to watch the series if you don't like it. But if you do want to watch the series, then there is a link on screen now on the left-hand side. That's the full playlist. And there's also links to the previous episode as well, just if you haven't seen that yet. But yeah, like I say, look forward to the roller coaster construction next episode. And I hope you enjoyed this video. This Saturday there'll be a Blunderbirds episode in KSP. And yeah, have a good rest of the day.